Welcome into Flock Nation Speaks. Flock Nation Speaks. Flock Nation Speaks, your Baltimore Ravens podcast, where we talk about the best team in NFL history. If you're a Ravens fan, I am a huge Joe Flacco fan. Wise Usher once said, "Situations will arise in our lives." I'm talking about shut down. Like you're not throwing on Jimmy Smith. Joe is criminally underrated. Lock him up in cuffs. Criminally underrated. Lamar's put this team as a top 5 offense for the first time in 20 years. Got the arm talent. Jay Cutler had it too. I don't care about this argument against total TDs and all this. Oh, you want to talk about defense? Oh, until next time. Look. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. I just gotta make sure this thing's still working, okay? Because it's been far too long. But welcome into, we'll just say, Flock Nation Speaks, your Baltimore Ravens podcast, where we talk about the best team in NFL history. If you're a Ravens fan, of course, and I'm definitely gonna keep that. But anyway, I'll fill y'all in on that a little bit later, maybe even next week. But let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens right now. Look, it's been some crazy times around here, but I am back. I promise, I am back, and just in time. Okay, just in time for the preseason, just in time for these rosters, man. To take a look at this depth chart and see where we are. Post draft, getting into kind of the nitty gritty of training camp. And, I've been keeping up to date. I haven't been out of the loop completely. I just haven't been recording. But I will say, I'm excited, man. I think going into the preseason, there's a lot to think about. There's a lot to judge. There's a lot to talk about. And, the Ravens have a lot of things that we need to look into. They have some potential concerns that really, I don't want to say only the preseason can answer, but the preseason is going to give us a good indication of what we will see throughout the regular season. And let's jump right into it. I do want to pull the depth chart up because I want y'all to see what we're working with right now. All right, I want y'all to see what we're working with, and I want y'all to see when the time comes to play Philly on the 9th in a couple days, when the preseason starts, what the Ravens will be working with, what they be working towards, because of course, we don't see a lot of starters, especially week 1, but it'll give us a chance to look at some other guys. But I mean, of course, I think we'll probably see, maybe Josh Johnson, Devin Leary, Emory Jones. And honestly, especially first preseason game, since Josh Johnson's been there, Josh Johnson's done that, we might not even see him. So I think, but I think to go into it, I think some of the guys I'm really excited to see, that I think we'll definitely see in that first preseason game. Tez Walker, definitely. I want to see what he does, and it's interesting because let's think back on the last couple of years for the Ravens. Let's just think back on what we had. Let's think back on in previous situations. We were, as a team, we're banking on these undrafted free agents. We're banking on some guys who might be a little bit more improving, especially at the wide receiver position. And I think that's why I'm so excited to see Tez Walker, because there's a very good possibility that Tez Walker can show some playmaking speed that the Ravens probably need, to help out Bateman, to help out Zay, to kind of spell out Nelson Aguilar as well. And Tez Walker being, I don't know if he's kind of in that category of wide receiver 4, but he's fighting with Tylan Wallace, he's fighting with Deontay Hardy, who's been around, done that as well. So I think that battle for wide receiver 4 is going to be very interesting, and it could. All 3 of those guys could sneak their way in to wide receiver 3, possibly to that slot role, maybe, or maybe even just the wide receiver 3 role. Not even necessarily the slot, but just wide receiver 3 with an ability to make some plays. So I'm very excited, man. I'm very excited to see what Tez Walker is going to do because, you know, I was excited when the Ravens picked Tez Walker. I was like, this is going to be good because, you know, he continues to just add to this wide receiver room, and that's definitely something that could be a concern with, no Odell this season. And once again, and it feels like we've said this time and time again, but a very unproven group in the Baltimore Ravens when it comes to the wide receiver room. And I think we all expect Zay to have a good season. But then after that, I think there's a lot of uncertainty. I think there's a lot of what's next? Who's next? Who will be the next guy? I think for me, in my personal opinion, I think Bateman will have a breakout year this year. I really do, and we're gonna stamp it right. We're gonna stamp it right there. Okay, we're gonna stamp it right there. We're gonna come back to this later on, and y'all gonna be like, you know what, that dude over there, from Fly Nation Speaks from the Be More show. Look, man, he was telling us something. He was keying us in. Okay, but no, I think because I really do think Bateman. I think this is going to be one of those rare opportunities where the Ravens paid the guy maybe before he's proven it, and then they're going to be ahead of the curve on the breakout. And I think that's what we're going to see from Bateman. I think there's going to finally be some sort of chemistry, kind of that rookie year, second year chemistry that we saw from Lamar Jackson and Rashad Bateman together when it was Bateman's rookie year. And Bateman's, his second year, he had, we talked about it before. He's shown flashes. It's just he hasn't been able to consistently produce. Now, some of that lack of chemistry, probably. Is some of that injury issues on his end, probably, right? So if Bateman can stay healthy, and considering he is kind of playing the Odell role, I think that sets up Bateman to have a really good season this season. But another, and that kind of, one more time on that regard, it kind of goes hand in hand with that wide receiver 3 position with Tez Walker, Tylan Wallace, Deontay Hardy, who takes that, not wide receiver 3, but wide receiver 4 role. Who will take that role? Let me know down below who you guys think will take that role. I definitely think it's going to be Tez Walker. I think Tylan Wallace probably, I feel like he'll be more of a special teams guy. So it's possible that he might not even get those chances because I think they're going to want him returning punts. But I think Tez Walker and Deontay Hardy will definitely fight for that spot. I know a lot of people are high on Tylan Wallace, and we'll definitely see what happens with Tylan Wallace, but it's definitely going to be exciting. But moving into the offensive line. Now, title of the stream, title of the video, the biggest concern, I think it's right here. I think when you look at this roster from top to bottom, I'll pull it back up for you guys so you guys can see. When you look at this roster from top to bottom, I'll zoom in a little bit as well so we can get our eyes feasted on this thing. Look, I think when you look top to bottom, I mean, you're not worried quarterback, you're not worried at running back. Even with the backups, you're not worried. Justice Hill can hold it down until Keaton Mitchell gets back, and we know when Keaton Mitchell gets back, it might be over in terms of the 1-2 punch that him and Derrick Henry can possess at the running back position, especially adding in Lamar Jackson's runs as well. I mean, it's going to be good. And then even at receiver, I think, albeit it's an unproven group, I still feel like there's so much potential there. We've seen what Rashad Bateman can do. He just got to put it on the field for 17 games, right? He just got to put it on the field in a consistent manner for 17 games. We've seen what Zay can do. We already know. He's legit wide receiver 1. Like we know what Zay can do. He came in rookie year, took that spot right off the bat, didn't care about anything. And I think Bateman's got a little chip on his shoulder as well. And then even with Aguilar, he gives you that veteran presence that you need. So I don't have as many question marks, at least when we look at the offense. I don't have as many question marks about wide receiver. Tight end, like we said before, hey, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kolar, we know the core. We know that the tight ends are going to be involved, and we know that they're going to be successful. And then, fullback. I mean, we know what Project Pat gonna do. We know what Pancake Pat gonna do. We know what Big Pat gonna do. Okay, we know he gonna do his thing, and for the fullback position, you don't get a lot going on in that position nowadays. So we definitely know it's gonna be something. But the offensive line, okay, I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit more so we can just take a deeper look into this offensive line right here. So, that might be a little too deep of a look right there. All right, look. So the offensive line, starting with Tyler Linderbaum at center. That's the thing, because the missing pieces during the offseason, during the draft, all of that were left guard, and right tackle. And it's interesting to see Patrick McCarry starting out as the right tackle one, right? Because Patrick McCarry, I mean, all credit given to him for being kind of the Swiss Army knife of the offensive line, just playing where he's needed. And it is a little odd. It is a little odd that he hasn't been pushed into more of a prominent role. But the one thing about the Ravens that you kind of got to give a little bit of credit to the Ravens on is, if they love these project guys, they do, and I think sometimes they live by that, they die by that. And in terms of at the right guard position, right at the right guard, right tackle, they've had McCary, who literally has played pretty much all 5 lineman positions, if it's felt like. And he's been solid, right? He's never really been the guy at any of those roles, but he's been solid. So I don't think I would be mad about McCarry playing right tackle, but I don't think you bring in Rosengarten to make McCarry, to have McCarry be the starting right tackle. I just don't see that being a thing you actually do. So I think on top of that, I think the questions are with the new guys, right? Like, we know what we have when healthy. We know what we have in Ronnie Stanley. When healthy, we know what we have in Linderbaum, right? And I mean, Linderbaum's been pretty healthy his entire career, but especially with Stanley, the when healthy part, we know what we know what we're getting in Ronnie Stanley. Maybe, and he may not even be as much of the guy as he used to be, but we know what to expect. But when you go to Falele at right guard, you go to Ben Cleveland at right guard. We go to Patrick McCarry at right tackle. We go to Rosengarten potentially at right tackle. Andrew Voorhees at left guard, and Umave Laalu from NC State. We just don't know what to expect, man. I mean, and that's the thing, and I think that's the biggest concern. That's the biggest concern. That's the biggest question mark, is the fact of Lamar Jackson being protected this season. Now, we know Lamar Jackson is going to make plays. We know, we've seen Lamar Jackson play under some pretty suspect offensive lines. No matter what PFF will tell you, we've seen some suspect offensive lines, but I think the skill players, and I think regardless of how the line is, of course the line needs to be good, but regardless of how the line is, I think we'll still see the skill players play well. We'll still see some good numbers from the receivers. We'll still see some good numbers from Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, and Keaton Mitchell, whatever combination of those guys that plays. But I think at the same time, the struggle is going to be, how much time are you going to have for a big play and stuff like that. I think, the lineman battles, not only through training camp, but also in the early goings and throughout the preseason, that's going to be the real question. Because, I mean, and this is just for me now, albeit I've been away for a little bit, but this is just for me. Left guard, right tackle, and right guard are question marks right now. Ben Cleveland has been around for so many seasons. It's felt like he's been around for a while. He's been around for so many seasons, but at the same time, it's like, obviously he hasn't shown consistently enough that he can be that guy. I mean, that's why Faalele is playing at that position. And we talked about this before too, with Faalele being more right guard material than right tackle material. So it's cool to see Faalele getting a spot and getting a chance to play right guard. But at the same time, it's cool to see Faalele being nimble enough to still play right guard, even with some failures at right tackle. So, and I mean, when you think about it too, you think about kind of building that brick wall, kind of building that brick wall, right? Like, and we know what Tyler Lindenbaum can do. We know what Ronnie Stanley can do. And even still, we kind of know. I mean, it's crazy to think Makari's been around for so long. We still don't really know how good Makari is, but we kind of know what Makari can do. But Lele, just the sheer stature of him, that's brick wall material right there. I think Voorhees probably in the same fashion, right? It's just like we gonna build a wall around around this QB right now. So I think offensively, that's kind of where we are, right? That's kind of where we are. We're at that point where we're at that point where the biggest uncertainties is that offensive line. And I'm very excited to see how the offensive line holds up. I'm excited to see the breakdowns on these guys a little bit more too, especially once they get into kind of in-game action, to see kind of who's going to get the edge and what it's going to mean. I think this offensive line, kind of like those in the past, regardless of how good they actually end up, I think regardless of how good they actually end up being, I think there's a lot to be said for not necessarily what they could be, but I think regardless of what the floor may be, I think they'll still look like a good cohesive offensive line, at least to the rest of the world. Now, us as Ravens flock, we might think a little bit differently, but we'll definitely see. Jumping down to the defensive end, and in terms of the question marks, I don't know if y'all are surprised by this. All right, I'm just gonna be honest with y'all. I don't know if y'all are surprised by what the question mark will be for the defense. Let me know real quick down below why y'all think about it, and let me know what y'all's is. Let's run through the defensive depth chart real quick, and just the guys we can kind of expect to see, and not only week one, but especially more so in Philly, who kind of got some things to talk about. So when you look at it, right, of course we got Travis Jones, Brent Urban. I think we'll see more of Ravenel and Walter in terms of defensive ends. I don't expect to see Michael Pierce, maybe even at all, this preseason. Deidre Sinnett and Josh Tupou, I think we expect to see both of those guys. Honestly, we probably expect to see them more than we'll see Broderick Washington, because we've seen what Broderick Washington can do. We know what he can do. We know he's a good backup to Justin Metabike and a good depth piece to have. Now, I think the intrigue comes in at the linebacker position, and not just the edge rushers, right? Not just the edge rushers, but even when you think about one Trenton Simpson, right? It's interesting to see Trenton Simpson up so high in the depth chart when you got guys who've been at that kind of middle linebacker 2 role, with like Malik Harrison, for example. Chris Board has played sometimes in there. Of course, you got Josh Ross coming off an injury from last season. And I think, the expectation is to see Josh Ross and Deion Jennings and Rigby as well, a little bit more in the first game, so that it's a fun little, especially when you get to the first game, it's fun to see some of those guys who got drafted a little bit later and see them work hard to try to make their spot. Right. Of course, you got Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins. We know how that's going to be. TJ Tampa being on the PUP list for the time being, so he probably won't see the field a lot against Philly. But Christian Matthew, number 28, Kane. Of course, I don't think Eddie Jackson will see the field much. Not this early, but I think he will later. I don't think he'll see this. I don't think he see the field much. But that's a big pickup right there. I think. I think Eddie Jackson is kind of exactly what was needed, because I was wondering this whole offseason who's going to be that third safety, right? Because if you want Hamilton to play more in the box, you want Marcus Williams to do what he does, then you're going to need another guy in the backfield. And I think Eddie Jackson, the defensive backfield at least, Eddie Jackson is good because, he's a veteran. He's been there. He's done that. And I think, honestly, he kind of has that Ravens mentality already coming in. So it'll be very interesting. Of course, Darius Washington, Darryl Worley, guys who've been there before, guys who will probably still be on the team. as well. And then guys who probably gonna have a little bit to prove: Jalen Armour Davis, Pepe Williams, right? I mean, they're gonna have to go up against Bump Cooper and Trayvon Mullen, Kadar Holman. They're gonna have to go up against those guys, and they're gonna have to earn their spots. I think the battle for corner is much more interesting because I think it's obvious that Marlon, Nate Wiggins, Arthur Millette, Brandon Stevens. I think those are obvious guys who are going to be there. But who else is there for depth, especially at a position where the Ravens have always needed a lot of depth, and you can never have too many? I mean, TJ Tampa being a rookie, depending on his health too, being on the PUP list right now, that's a question to be had. And I think it's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the cornerbacks and the secondary plays out as well. But I think the biggest question, the biggest concern right now, I think it's edge rusher, man. Like let's be honest. I mean, I just named off in the secondary. I just named off, at least corner wise, I named off 4 guys that we know can play, right? At least can play in a good system. At least can play within their means. With I think Marlon Humphrey and Brandon Stevens being 2 of the best. And then, of course, I think we'll see a lot of Nate Wiggins. And if Nate Wiggins can keep up what he did in college, I think, we'll see him move up, maybe even past Brandon Stevens. But I mean, Brandon Stevens, a guy I gave a little bit too much criticism to last year, but a guy who showed up. He showed up and he played well. So I think the battle for corner is very interesting in terms of depth, but who you have at corner, right? You know who your guys are at corner. Now, when we go back to the linebacker position, then we gotta talk, okay? Because I think minorly, right? Like even like lower level wise, right? Like even like a lower discussion would be Trenton Simpson, right? What will he do? Could Malik Harris kind of battle him out a little bit because he's been there and done that before, and he's shown glimpses here and there, but never really the consistency of it. A guy like Josh Ross, a guy like Deion Jennings, will they kind of outplay Trenton Simpson a little bit? Maybe, right? But I think it's Trenton Simpson's job to lose at this point. But it's edge rusher for me. All right, it's when you look at Odafe Owe, when you look at David Ojabo, when you look at not necessarily Calvin Oy, but maybe Atavius Robinson, Asita Isaac, like those guys. I think once you look at those guys, especially Owe, especially Ojabo, especially Isaac, right? I think those 3 all kind of depth chart wise always interesting because they're vying for the same. They're vying for the same position. But, Ojabo, because we wonder if he can stay healthy. And even still, we wonder how good he is when he is healthy, right? Because we just haven't seen it yet. We don't know. We don't know what Ojabo's got. Owe, I think this is where the Ravens missed Jadeveon Clowney a little bit, because I think having Jadeveon Clowney, whether Ojabo is healthy or not, having Jadeveon Clowney as at least a pretty good pass rusher, I think it let Owe just be free. Owe wasn't pressured to be the guy. He wasn't pressured to be, the guy to get every sack there was. He just was. He could play within his means, right? He could play within his means. He could improve. He still ended up with 5 sacks last year after the year previous where he didn't have any sacks. So I think pass rush is going to be something, right? Pass rush is going to be another question mark, and it's going to be something to talk about, not only in the preseason just to see kind of how guys look, but especially when the regular season comes for a team that led the league in sacks. And if not, I know they led the league for a while. If not led the league, they were really high up in sacks. And considering it only feels like they're replacing Jadeveon Clowney, but it just seems like a big blow in comparison when you think about it. When you expect Ojabo to be healthy, but he hasn't yet. When you expect Owe to continue to just be a playmaker, I think that's what they want. I don't even know if they want 10 sacks from Ojabo. I think they want him to just make plays. They want him to get tackles for loss. They want him to chase people down. They want him to get a sack or two here and there, but he don't have to necessarily be the guy. And I think he plays a little bit better when he isn't necessarily pressured to be the guy. So it's definitely gonna be exciting, man. I'm definitely excited to see with the first preseason game what happens, right? Because I want to see exactly how this is gonna go. But I'm going to wrap up, guys. I'm gonna see you guys on the next episode, and we'll definitely talk a little bit more about the Ravens and what's going down. I know I owe y'all a deep breakdown and with the schedule, especially as things get closer to. It'll be a little easier, and I can be a little more clear about what I think the Ravens will do. And I also got another video as well that I have kind of saved that I want to break down a little bit, talking about the Ravens ceiling and floor, and kind of give my thoughts on that as well. So I'll definitely do that very, very soon. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button down below. I'll definitely see you guys on the next episode. We'll see you guys next time. Until next time, my friends.